The medical base smelled like burnt copper and regret. Commander Thaal pressed his secondary appendages against the viewing glass, watching the human named Marcus Webb sit upright on the examination platform, scratching at his arm where the injection site still glowed faintly green. The human yawned. Actually yawned, like this was some sort of dental appointment instead of a death sentence. "This is extraordinary," whispered Dr. Vinn, her ocular sensors dilating and contracting in what Thaal had learned to recognize as extreme anxiety. "The Crimson Void pathogen has a 98% mortality rate across 17 known species. We've watched entire colony worlds go dark. And he's just sitting there looking bored." Thaal's throat sacs inflated with frustrated air. "How long has it been since exposure?" 47 minutes. "And the symptoms?" Vinn gestured at her datapad, mandibles clicking nervously. "His temperature spiked for approximately 6 minutes, then normalized. Mild inflammation at the injection site. Some increased mucus production, which he addressed by," she paused, consulting her notes with obvious distaste, blowing his nose into a paper tissue. The human in question caught them staring and waved cheerfully through the glass. His smile was disturbingly confident for someone who should be experiencing organ failure right about now. Thaal activated the communication panel. "Mr. Webb, how are you feeling?" "Honestly? Pretty good. Little warm earlier, but nothing crazy. You guys got any water in here? My throat's kinda scratchy." Dr. Vinn made a sound like escaping steam. "His throat is scratchy. His entire respiratory system should be liquefying." "Send in the water," Thaal ordered, then turned back to the human. "Mr. Webb, I need you to understand the gravity of this situation. The pathogen we exposed you to has destroyed civilizations. The Kelthran Empire, 30 billion souls, gone in 6 orbital cycles. The Praxian Collective, reduced to archaeological curiosity. This is not a minor ailment." Marcus accepted the water container from the automated delivery chute, took a long drink, then shrugged. "Yeah, I get that it's serious for you guys. But honestly, this feels like when I had chickenpox in 3rd grade. Maybe a light case of mono freshman year of college. Are we sure this thing is actually dangerous?" Vinn's mandibles clacked rapidly, a sign Thaal recognized as impending hysteria. "Are we sure? Are we sure? I have documented evidence of this pathogen causing complete systemic collapse in species far more biologically robust than humans. The Thorgacs have triple redundant organ systems and they died screaming." "Huh," Marcus said, sounding genuinely sympathetic. "That sucks. But I mean, look, I'm not trying to downplay your space plague or whatever, but humans have been dealing with diseases forever. Like, you know about smallpox? Killed about 300 million of us before we figured out vaccines. The Black Death took out a third of Europe. Spanish flu, 40 to 50 million dead. And those were just the highlights. We've been fighting biological warfare since before we invented writing." Thaal felt a cold sensation spreading through his primary neural cluster. "You're saying your species has survived multiple extinction-level pathogens? Multiple? Try hundreds. Maybe thousands if you count all the stuff that never made it big. Every year we deal with new mutations of influenza. HIV, Ebola, tuberculosis, malaria, and don't even get me started on the nightmare that was COVID-19. That thing shut down our entire planet for like 2 years, and we still bounced back." Marcus scratched his arm again. "Is this supposed to itch?" "Because it kind of itches." Vinn was now pacing in tight circles, her locomotion appendages moving in erratic patterns. "This is impossible. The Crimson Void attacks cellular structures at the molecular level. It rewrites genetic coding. It turns immune responses against the host." "Yeah, that sounds like standard virus behavior," Marcus replied, examining his fingernails with mild interest. "Our immune systems have been doing the whole genetic arms race thing for millions of years. It's kind of our thing. We're basically walking, talking mutation factories. Every cold we catch makes us a little bit better at fighting the next one. Thaal pulled up historical data on his personal screen, scrolling through humanity's medical records. The casualty numbers were staggering. Hundreds of millions dead from diseases with names he couldn't pronounce. Yet somehow, impossibly, they kept going. Kept building. Kept expanding. "Commander," Vinn said quietly, her voice modulating to frequencies that indicated genuine fear. "If this pathogen doesn't affect them, if they can simply adapt and overcome what killed the Kelthrans, what killed the Praxians, then they're more dangerous than we thought," Thaal finished. Marcus stood up, stretching his arms over his head with a series of small cracking sounds that made both aliens flinch. "So, how long do I need to stay in here? Because I'm supposed to meet Lieutenant Kara for lunch, and she gets cranky if I'm late." "You're fraternizing with our tactical officer?" Thaal asked, momentarily distracted. "Fraternizing? Dude, we're dating. She thinks the whole interspecies thing is exotic. I think her sense of humor is adorable. Win-win." Marcus pressed his face close to the glass, his breath fogging the surface. "Seriously though, am I good to go? Because I feel fine. Better than fine, actually. Whatever antibodies or white blood cells or whatever are handling this, they seem pretty happy about it." Dr. Vinn pulled up a microscopic view of Marcus's blood sample on the main display. Even Thaal, who had limited medical training, could see what was happening. The Crimson Void pathogen was being systematically destroyed by the human's immune response. Not just fought off. Obliterated. "Mr. Webb," Thaal said slowly, "I believe you are, as you say, good to go." Marcus grinned, that terrifying expression humans made when they were pleased. "Awesome. Hey, you guys want me to donate some blood samples or whatever? Might help with developing treatments for your species. We've gotten pretty good at vaccines back home. Could probably whip something up." As the human left the medical bay, whistling some tuneless melody, Thaal and Vinn stood in silence. "We invited them onto the Galactic Council," Vinn finally said, "because we thought they were primitive. Harmless." "Yes," Thaal agreed. "They survive what kills us without even trying." "Yes." "Commander, what have we done?" Thaal had no answer. He only knew that humanity had just become significantly more interesting, and significantly more terrifying, than any species had a right to be. The emergency session of the Galactic Medical Consortium convened exactly 4 hours after Marcus Webb walked out of quarantine eating a sandwich. Thaal stood at the central podium, surrounded by holographic projections of the galaxy's most prominent medical officials. All of them looked about as comfortable as someone sitting on a cactus. Which, given what he was about to tell them, seemed appropriate. "Esteemed colleagues," Thaal began, his voice steady despite the tremor in his auxiliary limbs, "we have a situation that fundamentally challenges our understanding of biological warfare and pandemic response." High Physician Cora of the Zelthian hegemony leaned forward, her scales shifting from pale blue to deep purple, which meant she was either extremely interested or about to molt. "Commander Thaal, we received your preliminary data. Surely there's been some mistake in the analysis. No species could simply ignore the Crimson Void." "That's what we thought too," Dr. Vinn interjected, pulling up a three-dimensional model of Marcus Webb's cellular structure. However, after 6 hours of continuous monitoring, the human subject shows zero signs of systemic degradation. In fact, his immune markers indicate he's getting healthier. He went to the gymnasium and ran 7 kilometers. "For fun." "For fun," whispered Physician Holt from the Andraxian assembly, his antenna drooping in disbelief. "Why would anyone run voluntarily?" "Humans are confusing," Thaal admitted. "But that's not the point. The point is that we exposed him to a pathogen that has a documented kill rate of 98% across 17 species, and his body treated it like a minor inconvenience." His exact words were, and I quote, "I've had worse hangovers." The assembled physicians erupted in a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and alarmed hoots. Chancellor Drex, an 8-limbed Vorton who had survived 4 separate plague outbreaks through sheer stubbornness and luck, raised one appendage for silence. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," Drex said, his voice carrying the weight of 3 centuries of medical experience. "A single human, with no advanced nanite support, no genetic enhancement beyond natural selection, and no prophylactic treatment, survived exposure to the Crimson Void?" "Not just survived," Vinn corrected. "Thrived. His immune system didn't just fight off the pathogen. It annihilated it. We're talking about complete cellular domination in under an hour. His body produced antibodies so aggressively that we initially thought our equipment was malfunctioning." "Impossible," muttered Cora. "The Crimson Void adapts. It mutates. That's why it's so deadly." "Apparently," Thaal said, pulling up historical human medical data, "adaptation is something humans are exceptionally good at. Their evolutionary history is a horror show of biological catastrophes that would have rendered most species extinct. They've survived ice ages, volcanic winters, asteroid impacts, and diseases that killed 90% of their population. And every time, the survivors came back stronger." On the screen behind him, data scrolled past at dizzying speed. Plague. Cholera. Typhoid. Polio. Measles. Rabies. Tetanus. The list went on and on and on. "They named their diseases," Physician Holt observed, sounding vaguely horrified. "They named them like pets." "They name everything," Thaal replied. "It's part of their psychological warfare strategy. You can't be afraid of something named chickenpox. It sounds adorable. Then you learn it causes fever, pustules, and extreme discomfort, and you realize they've been living with this for thousands of years." Marcus Webb himself appeared on a live feed, having been invited to join the session. He was eating what appeared to be a chocolate bar, which Thaal had learned was some sort of compressed sugar and fat that humans consumed for pleasure. "Hey everyone," Marcus said cheerfully, waving at the assembly of Galaxy's top medical minds. "So, I hear I'm causing some excitement." "Mr. Webb," Chancellor Drex began carefully, "how many major diseases has your species encountered in recorded history?" Marcus scratched his head, thinking. "Recorded history? Major ones, maybe a few hundred? But if you count regional outbreaks, mutations, and all the stuff that pops up every decade or so, probably thousands. We've got entire government agencies just dedicated to tracking new diseases. The CDC, WHO, NIH, bunch of others. It's kind of a full-time job keeping track of what's trying to kill us this week." The silence that followed was profound and deeply uncomfortable. "And you just live like this?" Cora asked. "Constantly under biological siege?" "I mean, we wash our hands a lot," Marcus offered. "Get vaccinated. Avoid licking doorknobs. Common sense stuff. But yeah, disease is just part of life. Always has been. My grandmother survived polio, my dad had measles, I had the flu probably 20 times by now. You build up immunity, you know?" "We don't know," Vinn said flatly. "Most species encounter perhaps 3 or 4 major pathogens in their evolutionary history. Your species has encountered that many before breakfast." Marcus laughed, which made several of the physicians flinch. Human laughter sounded disturbingly like predatory warning calls. "Before breakfast? Come on, that's exaggerating. It's more like, I don't know, 1 or 2 new things per generation. We've gotten pretty good at dealing with it. Medicine, hygiene, antibiotics. Speaking of which, you guys discovered penicillin yet? Because that stuff is a game changer." Thaal pulled up another data file. According to their medical history, humans discovered antibiotics by accident when one of their researchers noticed mold-killing bacteria. They then proceeded to mass-produce it and saved millions of lives. "They weaponized mold," Holt said weakly. They looked at fungus and thought, yes, this will solve our problems. To be fair, Marcus interjected, it did solve a lot of problems. Bacterial infections used to be a death sentence. Now they're just annoying. Well, except for the resistant strains, but we're working on that. Science is an iterative process. Chancellor Drex leaned back in his suspension chair, his many eyes half closing in what might have been respect or possibly existential dread. Mr. Webb, let me ask you a hypothetical question. If humanity encountered a disease that had a 99% fatality rate, what would your species do? Marcus didn't even hesitate. Find the 1% who survived, figure out why, and reverse engineer a cure. That's basically what we did with HIV. Used to be a death sentence, now it's manageable with treatment. Still working on a complete cure, but we're stubborn like that. Stubborn, Thaal repeated. That's one word for it. Look, Marcus said, his expression becoming more serious, I get that this is weird for you guys. But humans have been fighting diseases since before we climbed down from trees. It's made us really good at medicine, really paranoid about hygiene, and really invested in keeping each other alive. We've lost billions of people to disease over our history. Billions. So yeah, when we encounter something new, we don't panic. We fight. We research. We adapt. It's what we do. The assembled physicians sat in contemplative silence, processing this information. Finally, Cora spoke. Commander Thaal, I move that we immediately begin collaborative medical research with the human species. If they can survive the Crimson Void, they might be able to help us develop treatments. Seconded, Holt added quickly. Though I also suggest we maintain a healthy respect for any species that considers surviving extinction-level plagues to be, and I quote, character building. Marcus grinned again. Happy to help. Fair warning though, our medical terminology is weird. We've got diseases named after doctors, places, and sometimes just random descriptions like breakbone fever. It's a whole thing. As the session concluded and the holograms flickered out, Thaal found himself looking at Marcus Webb with new understanding. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy through superior weapons or faster ships. They'd done it by simply refusing to die. Every plague, every disaster, every catastrophe that should have wiped them out had instead made them stronger. It was terrifying. It was impressive. It was, Thaal had to admit, incredibly human. Hey Commander, Marcus called out before disconnecting. Tell Dr. Vinn thanks for the care. And if you guys need any help with future outbreaks, just call. We've got like 10,000 years of experience dealing with this stuff. Always happy to share. The feed cut out, leaving Thaal alone with his thoughts and the uncomfortable realization that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their determination. It was their immune system, and that was somehow the most terrifying weapon of all.